Secretary Blinken has been on Capitol Hill yesterday and today, getting grilled by both chambers of Congress and even by both sides of the aisle. The issue at hand was, of course, the disastrous withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan by the president's artificial deadline of August the 31st. Now, Congress had a lot of questions, but Blinken was short on answers. Joining us to discuss yesterday's House Foreign Affairs hearing with Secretary Blinken is Congressman Scott Perry. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Great to see you, Tony, and thanks so much. And of course, I was there, and I would just characterize it this way. It's better to have no excuse than a bag of lousy excuses. And what we learned, and what Americans learned if they watched any portion of that hearing, is that we have a very poor excuse for Secretary of State, and an even worse one as President of the United States. The Secretary of State acted like the withdrawal from Afghanistan was a great and raving success, and all my colleagues on the other side of the aisle completely backed him up. I was actually astounded that there was zero criticism from the other side of the aisle. And look, we're not saying that the world's perfect and that this could have been perfect, but it would be hard to show and it would be hard to accomplish something so wrong if you didn't actually plan to do it the way that they did it. And we still don't know how many Americans are left behind. Of course, there are Christians left behind, and there are friends of the United States of America who have sacrificed on behalf of America that have been left behind now under the control of the Taliban, which is a terrorist state, and almost unapologetically, without a conscience, the Secretary Blinken not only said we're going to try and work with the Taliban, that essentially legitimizing them, that they are very businesslike, but that your tax dollars are still headed to Afghanistan. We just spent 20 years, trillions of dollars, thousands of lives. We left them a $1 billion embassy and tens of billions of dollars in the most advanced military hardware on the planet, and yet it's still not enough. It's unbelievable.
Also, Congressman, I should remind our listeners, you're a retired general from the Army, from the National Guard in Pennsylvania. First off, I want to say I watched a good portion of the hearing yesterday. I watched your exchange with Secretary Blinken. I appreciate you pressing him on these matters. I want to go to the issue you just brought up, and that is the funding that they have committed. Now, it is humanitarian funding, and he says it's going to go to NGOs, but we know how the Taliban shakes people down.
It's so incredible to me how tone deaf they are. Tony, we have just spent 20 years, thousands of lives and trillions of dollars fighting this very regime, the Khorasan group, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, you name the different terrorist organizations headquartered or affiliated in Afghanistan. And now we're going to continue to send American dollars in aid for the oppressed people of Afghanistan because of the Taliban that we just surrendered to. The United States didn't surrender. The United States military didn't surrender. Joe Biden and Antony Blinken surrendered on our behalf. And unfortunately, we have to suffer the humiliation of it and not having earned it. This is the policymakers. I often say, Tony, that it's not the troops. It's not the men and women who wear the boots that are responsible for this failure. This is from the suits in Washington, D.C., the appeasers and the surrenderers in chief. And that's who they are.
Now, if I summarize correctly what he had to say yesterday, essentially maintaining that the only thing that went wrong in Afghanistan was the unexpected collapse of the Afghan military. I mean, do we not have better intelligence? Were they not reading the right reports? Were they not watching the proper news channels to see what was actually happening in Afghanistan?
Look, like I said, I've had a hard time characterizing this as incompetence or negligence. Unfortunately, from what I've seen, it's almost like this was actually part of the plan. And Tony, unfortunately, we must admit, and the Secretary of State did admit to me in questioning yesterday, for the past 20 years, we've been paying Pakistan. We've been funding Pakistan, who's then been funding Al-Qaeda, who's been funding ISIS-K, the Khorasan group, et cetera. And so they should have known. There's absolutely no reason that they shouldn't have seen this coming. They were briefed on it. All the signs were there. a second lieutenant right out of college, a brand new commissioned second lieutenant, could have seen what was coming here. And so I'm sorry, I don't accept the excuse. I don't accept their blame on President Trump. They said, well, we couldn't. This was baked in. We didn't have any choice here. They changed the Mexico City policy. They changed our policy on the southern border. They changed our policy, Trump's policy regarding the Paris Climate Accord. They're trying to change the policy regarding the Iran nuclear deal. They changed the policy on Nord Stream 2 and the Keystone Pipeline. They've been able to change every single policy they wanted to, but somehow this one, Tony, is all of the fault of President Trump. I'm not buying any of it.
Well, and also the Trump administration, I've talked to former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. There were there was a benchmark. There were points they had to reach before the U.S. would completely withdraw. They were going to maintain that presence until the Taliban reached certain steps. And the Biden administration changed the deadline. The original deadline or discussion point was May. They moved it to September the 11th, and then when the political backlash came to that, then they moved it back to August 31st. So it was never a hard, fast deadline. They could have kept a presence there until all Americans were out.
That's absolutely right, Tony. And it shouldn't be about deadlines. These things are about conditions, and that's why the previous administration under Secretary Pompeo and President Trump demanded a conditions-based withdrawal.
Right.
So that means that the Taliban, the government in place, has to meet certain conditions, and then we'll do our part. It's kind of like trust and then verify. Conditions-based withdrawal. The Biden administration gave no conditions to the Taliban and cut and ran in the middle of the night. It's not the same thing at all, and they can't act like this is President Trump's responsibility. It is absolutely the blood on their hands, and this horrific failure of foreign policy and national security falls right at the feet of President Biden and the Secretary of State.
Congressman Perry, I have a clip, I believe, of your exchange, but you changed topics.
Yes.
And I want to play this clip. Do we have the clip of Congressman Perry? Can we play that clip? Let's play that clip.
How long was your recent interview with the FBI, and was it a deposition?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring.
Are you saying that you have not had a recent interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, and I'm happy to take that up with you offline.
Did the State Department turn over documents to the FBI related to Hunter Biden, Burisma, and or the Blue State Strategies Corporation?
You'll have to.
So you have no knowledge of this. You have had no. You don't. You are you saying you have not had an interview with the FBI since becoming Secretary of State?
It would not be appropriate for me to comment in a public forum on any legal proceedings that the department
I'm not asking you to
cooperate.
I'm not asking you to comment on the legal proceedings. I'm just asking if you've been interviewed by the FBI since becoming Secretary of State.
Again, I'm not going to comment one way or another on any legal proceedings or not that may or may not have happened.
All right, Congressman, I know there was something behind that question. What's behind it?
Well, listen, behind it all is I question the judgment and the credibility of the Secretary of State. And it goes to more than just what happened in Afghanistan recently, but it also goes to his judgment and who he keeps company with. And unfortunately, Hunter Biden it's not because I say so. It's because there are credible reports that the FBI had interviewed the Secretary of State and that they were seeking a second interview because what he told them didn't match up with the facts. There are emails out there that indicate what Hunter Biden wanted to talk to the then Deputy Secretary of State under President Obama about, and they weren't about what the Secretary of State said, which was President Biden's then son, Beau Biden. So I think it's important that we understand whether he's using good judgment and whether he has credibility to conduct affairs of the highest level of state for the United States of America on behalf of America, and knowing that there are concerns about Burisma, Ukraine, even China, and the Biden family. I think that those are reasonable questions to ask, and the fact that he did not deny them, I think, is very, very telling. And so, while I have limited information, it seems to me, as I told the chairman, he should be intimately aware of this, and so he should be able to answer these questions freely. And I never said anything about legal proceedings. He said that. I never said that at all.
Yeah, he didn't deny anything, but he sure dodged it.
Sure.
I'm assuming we're going to hear more about this in the days ahead. Congressman Scott Perry, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for fighting the good fight on Capitol Hill.
Well, you too, Tony. God bless you, and God bless your viewers and your listeners. Thank you very much.